It is rank week at CHGO Sports, and today on CHGO Blackhawks, we're talking about the 10 biggest what-ifs in Blackhawks history. Let's do it. Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast here for CHGO Sports Rank Week. We are doing the 10 biggest what-ifs in Chicago Blackhawks history. I'm Jay Zawoski. That's Mario Tirabassi. We're here in our new studio. Sparkling.
Looks great.
Right over the shoulder.
It looks wonderful.
Yeah,
For those listening, trust us, it looks great.
It does look cool. Check it out on YouTube.
Also, check out our YouTube.
Absolutely. And if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you. Do us a favor, hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube page as well. And if you're listening on the podcast, we love you and thank you. Make sure you are following or subscribed or whatever your favorite podcast app calls for. All right.
Best thing about the new studio?
Tables. No one can see my belly.
Desk, finally.
And I have no pants on. And no one has any idea.
Oh, nice.
See?
Is that a Ziggy tattoo?
I'm kind of shocked you know who Ziggy is. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, let's start it off. We have 10 things to get to in 60 minutes to do so, so no more wasting time. Number 10 on our list of 10 Blackhawks what-ifs. What if Eric Daze didn't have serious injury issues?
Yeah. I'm one of those guys that of that era of the Blackhawks, that late 90s, which we will talk about later, into the 2000s. He was one of those players that was part of who was supposed to lead that team, lead that group. And he was a guy that I think, as we've talked about many times when he's been brought up on our shows, is like, you know, he was supposed to be a power forward in the era of Eric Lindros and, you know, the bigger players in the NHL that were just guys that would just muscle you over and score goal. And then he had that frame. He just didn't play that way. And I think probably some of it could be attributed to just a long-term run of injuries that really hampered what could have been like a really productive career. And I think if he doesn't miss as much time as he did, if his career doesn't get cut short when it does because of back issues, and I think he'd be more highly regarded in Blackhawks history than he is. He kind of gets forgotten to that era. And when I got into hockey and got into the Hawks, he was one of those guys that I loved watching. Yeah. And one of the first guys that I really kind of globbed onto and with the Blackhawks, and just a shame that couldn't stay on the ice and couldn't live up to the expectations that I think he had.
Well, when he had healthy seasons, he was a 30-goal scorer. 1995, 96, 80 games, 30 goals. 97, 98, 80 games, 31 goals. 82 games in 2001, 2002, 38 goals. This was a guy that, if aside from those numbers are really good, if he's not a guy whose back is so wonky that he literally has to lay on the floor of the airplane while the team traveled. That's what Eric Daze literally laid on his back on the floor of the airplane during flights. That's how bad his back was. So if he's playing with a healthy back, this could have been a certainly 40, potentially 50 goal scorer. Not the greatest playmaker in Hawks history by any means, but a guy that had a knack for putting the puck in the net, had a really good shot. And while he didn't play overly physical, he used his big frame to get into position and create space for himself. So if he is a 40, 50 goal guy and he's healthy, there's some pretty good Hawks teams in there that could have been made even better by Eric Daze. And then as you get later in his career, and we'll probably have this conversation a lot during the show, it's maybe good because if they were better, then the draft picks wouldn't have been as good.
Right.
And then maybe Hawks history that doesn't happen in the 2010s the way it did. So that's number 10. Let's move on to number 9. What if the Blackhawks choose Martin Havlat instead of Marian Hossa in the summer of 2009? If you remember correctly, Martin Havlat was an unrestricted free agent that summer, as was Marian Hossa. Havlat had a very successful first run with the Blackhawks. Everyone was pretty pleased with it. Had some injury issues, but nothing crazy. And everyone wanted Martin Havlat back. But as I remember this day vividly, as free agency went on July 1st, Hossa didn't sign right away, and Havlat wasn't signing. And I think it was about 4 p.m. on free agency day that the news came out that the Hawks signed Marian Hossa. And then Alan Walsh, very famous on Twitter, was Martin Havlat's agent, and he's like, the truth will come out someday about how the Blackhawks did my client wrong.
Yeah.
They didn't. They went and got the best player available, and the rest is history. But had it been Martin Havlat, how would Hawks history have changed in your mind?
Well, it's interesting because you say, like, his time in Chicago, he had, some injury issues, but still, even in some injury-riddled seasons, 57 points in 56 games his first year here. That was 06-07. 27 points in 35 games in the 07-08. Then that 08-09 team that was that, like, the arrival of Hawks hockey back in Chicago, like, became a thing again. And you got Daze and Kane and Keith, like that whole group. They run to the Western Conference Finals, 77 points in 81 games. He had a full season.
Yep.
First full season in Chicago, and he puts up nearly a point per game. He was, he had some overtime heroics too in that postseason run. So it's like, you look at it and you look at what he did the rest of his career. Like, he had a fine career. Wasn't Marian Hossa. With that team there, the way it was constructed, if they stick with Martin Havlat, I think you still have a very good team, because you still have all those guys that were there for all those cup runs minus Hossa. The step down from Hossa to Havlat is significant, but I still think that's a top 6 guy in the prime of his career, 27 years old. I think that's a guy that you still probably go on some of those runs with, but is he the over the hump guy that Hossa was, or does someone else play a larger role to fill the shoes of what Hossa had to do? I think there's a ton of what ifs with it, but I still think you still have a really quality team if you stick with Havlat. You just don't know if you ever have a cup team with him.
And the other thing too is you look at Havlat's years after Chicago. So he joins Minnesota, 73 games, 78 games, great, good seasons, 54 points in 73, 62 points in 78. But then from then on, he goes to San Jose, 39, 40, 48, 40, and then finally two unforgettable games with the St. Louis Blues.
He scored a goal
in 2015-16. That guy, he was on a 41 goal pace.
I was going to say, it's a good pace.
So yeah, I mean, just the longevity of Hossa. And I think too, like, the little things Hossa did were so significant that I think sometimes we lose track of, like, they don't always show up on the score sheet. Hossa was the complete. I always say Marian Hossa is a hockey robot.
Yeah.
If you could create in a lab, and we're trying, if you can create in a lab a hockey player, Marian Hossa is what comes out of it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they win a cup without Hossa. I could argue that maybe had they kept Havlat, they get one with him. But I mean, is he there? Nashville Game 5.
I was going to say,
is his nose for the? You know what I mean? Like,
I was going to say the thing about that, like, okay, you bring in Hossa, is after that 2010 season, the dismantling of that team, or the how it kind of falls apart, that I think still happens. Now, I don't think Havlat's maybe making as much as Hossa was, so maybe the cap situation is a little different and it affects it. But yeah, ripple effect of that. You may not have the exact run that you did if you don't get that cup in 2010. Like, how do things change for the runs in 13, 15, and how that team was constructed and pieced together? We'll expand on that conversation as this hour continues to go on.
All right, let's move on to number 8 before we hit the break zone for the first time. What if the Blackhawks never traded Phil Esposito? That's May 15th, 1967. Phil Esposito had a good start to his Hawks career, but went on to be one of the best players in the history of the game. He played 4 seasons in Chicago, and he had 74 goals, 100 assists for 174 points in 235 games, but then went on with Boston, 1,012 points in 625 games.
Jesus.
And then finishing his career with the Rangers, 404 points in 422 games. So just an absolutely insane run with Boston. Seasons of 126, 152, 133, 130, and 145 points, including 3 seasons, 61, 68, 66, and 76 goals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are astronomical numbers, and I don't want to hear about, the goalies were plumbers in the offseason and all those sort of things.
That's all
true,
Empire.
But those numbers are insane. Phil Esposito, one of the best players ever, and you'd think in this, you still got Sam Mikita, you still got Bobby Hull in that era.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine if Phil Esposito is still part of things, you're getting at least 1, maybe 2 more cups.
Yeah, and you say, and we've had these conversations, like, does he still become that player in Chicago? I think it's probably likely, because at that time, the greats, they pushed themselves to be, to be great without the modern training regimens and all that stuff. Like if you were skilled enough to have the career that he did, he was going to do it no matter what. And the circumstances were completely different back then. So yeah, I mean, you have a guy like that was a key piece of the Bruins dominating the way that they did in that era. You have him in Chicago. I think you're not talking about a 49-year drought back in 2010. I don't the cup runs that they had in the 70s. You probably get over the hump. You probably get past the Canadians. And what was that, 72?
Yep.
If you have a guy like him on the team, and the trade for him, like, you still got good players back.
Sure,
but nothing to the level of what Esposito brought to the ice.
Not at all. That was one of the probably biggest regretful trades in Hawks history.
There have been a few.
There have been a few. Yes, there have. All right, we're gonna hit the break zone for the first time. If you've not done it already, please hit that like button for us. We'll be back in 2 minutes on CHGO Blackhawks. And we've been telling you for a while now about our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. It is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping, whether you're new, whether you're a veteran. Sunnyside has everything you need to elevate your summer. They've got great locations, whether you're in the burbs, in the city, you're covered. And whatever you're looking for, whatever experience you're trying to find, even if you're not totally sure, the expert guidance they have at Sunnyside will get you squared away so you can get the experience you want specifically. I love the Good News Counting Sheep. I take one of those. I take actually half of one of those every night, sleep through the night. I feel refreshed in the morning. They're great. I also love the Mindy's, but they've got other great brands like Cresco and Floracal. Check them all out. Visit sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases with promo code HICHGO. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois MedCard holders. And if you're an existing customer, use the promo code CHGO50 for 50% off one Cresco Labs brand item.
And just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get that advantage. Empire has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day of their life. And we've all been to those big box stores, wandering the aisles, looking for all the materials that you need, and you're the one that has to haul them back to your home on your own. You're looking for an installer. You have to coordinate everything yourself. It's a terrible experience. Terrible, I say. Not with Empire Today. Their flooring experts can bring the showroom directly to you. You can pick the right flooring that fits in your space, the right materials, the right colors, how it works with your furniture setup, how it works with the lighting in your room. No one thinks about the lighting when it comes to floors. Empire covers it all and makes sure that you are getting the best floors and the best deal possible. You can schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using the promo code CHGO. That's right, $350 off. Restrictions do apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details.
All right, we move on to number 7 on our list of Blackhawks what ifs. What if the Blackhawks kept Dominik Hasek over Eddie Belfour. August 7th, 1992, the Hawks trade Dominik Hasek to the Sabres for Stefan Beauregard and a 4th-round draft pick. That draft pick became Eric Daze.
Ah, interesting.
So this is one that a lot of people talk about. And Dominik Hasek, one of the greatest goalies of all time, completely went on to reinvent the position.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I wouldn't even say reinvent the position because to this day, not a lot of goalies play like Dominik Hasek.
Mm-hmm.
He was a unicorn in the style in which he played. But Eddie Belfour was a great goalie.
Mm-hmm.
He is a Hall of Fame goalie. Would it be nice to have Hasek and Belfour?
Sure.
Yes, of course. It would be nice. But when you look at the situation when the Hawks traded Dominik Hasek, he had played 25 games with the Hawks. He was 13-4-2 with an .897 save percentage and a .258 goals against average. Not bad numbers, especially considering the era.
Yeah.
But you had Eddie Belfour in that time playing incredible hockey. And it was one of the, you would probably say at that time, there's Patrick Waugh, and then Eddie Belfour is right there with him. So I don't have a massive problem with this trade. I don't think anyone could have predicted that Dominik Hasek would have gone on to become what he did, especially when you look at the style. But in hindsight, was Hasek the better goalie than Belfour? Yes. At the time, though, if you're deciding between Belfour and Hasek, the sound decision at that moment was Eddie Belfour.
Yeah, I mean, the hindsight of everything. Yeah, you're right. You take Dominik Hasek for sure for what he ended up going on and doing. I mean, it's rare. I know we just saw it with Connor Hellebuck, but it's rare that you often see goaltenders be MVPs of the league, and he did it a number of times, and was those Sabres teams in the 90s, they had some talented players, but they don't get anywhere near where they do without Dominik Hasek being the all-world goaltender that he was. And I mean, you look at in the mid 90s to be a .930 save percentage, 937 in 1998, 99, like just an incredible run that he had. It's you can't predict that. But if you keep him around, who's to say that he develops into the same guy? It's the same question you have with Esposito and these guys that are earlier in their careers. The different environments that they're in, the different players that they play with. Like, who's to say he ends up becoming the same kind of 6-time Vezina winner kind of goaltender? And also, the Hawks of that era under Bill Wirtz and everything, if they had said we're sticking with Hasek and we're letting Ed Belfour go,
people would have
like torches and pitchforks.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Belfour's rookie year, 1990-91, he was first team All-Star. He won the Calder, won the Jennings, won the Vezina as a rookie.
Yeah.
So that's 90-91. 91-92. Numbers dropped off a little bit. 271 goals against, 894 save percentage, but still finished fourth. Yes, finished fourth in the Vezina that year. The next year, 92-93, he won another Vezina. So he's 2 for 3 in the Vezina to start his career.
Right.
So like all that. By the way, you mentioned 98-99 for Hasek. Can you give me those numbers again?
937 save percentage.
And what was the goals against?
1.87.
Okay, so that year, Eddie Belfour, 98-99. Had a 915 save percentage and a 199 goals against, finished 7th in the Vezina.
That's insane.
He had a sub-2
That's insane.
goals against average and finished 7th. That is when the NHL had a real problem with offense.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you saw those big rule changes come along, now I think you understand why. No offense to the Belfour or Hasek or any of the other 6 contenders for the Vezina that year. But holy crap, goals were at a massive premium during that era.
I want to see the Vezina voting for that. So yeah, Belfour 7th. Let's see. Hasek won it. Curtis Joseph was 2nd in voting. He had a 910 and a 256.
What?
Yeah. He had more. Wow, look at this. Okay, so the votes, 73 votes for Hasek, 64 for Curtis Joseph. He had more first place votes with 10 than Hasek had 8. He had more wins. That's interesting. The save percentage and the goals against numbers tell a completely different story.
I would say so too.
But wow, that's fascinating. Third place was Byron Dafoe, Martin Brodeur fourth, and Ron Tugnut, one of the best names in the NHL, was fifth there.
Put some Mando on your Tugnuts.
Yeah. He had a 925 save percentage. That was pretty good. Yeah, goaltending, each one of these guys is, 91, 92 in the save percentage or higher. Like, that's incredible. So to have a 937, if you had a 937 goaltender in modern day, like, holy crap.
That's insane.
The league average is like 905 now.
Yeah. It's that those numbers, regardless of the situation offensively in the league at the time, are astronomically great. So just to summarize this, do the Hawks win a cup with Hasek over Belfour?
Given the way that the rest of the 90s went?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know, though. Like, I always think back to that series against Colorado in 96, where it was Belfour versus Waugh, and the Avalanche were a better team. So while Waugh was stopping 35, Belfour was stopping 50, but often Patrick Waugh would win that game just because he had better personnel in front of him. So if it's Hasek instead of Belfour, maybe that third overtime loss, the 3 overtime loss, you win because Hasek makes one more save. I don't know, but I just think that, yes, the Hawks let a very good goalie go, but they had a legendary goalie there as well. So it's, kind of worked out for everybody.
That 95-96 season, Dominik Hasek had a 920 save percentage. In 59 games, he went 22, 30, and 6.
Jesus. That's crazy.
The NHL of the 90s was
wild.
An interesting experience.
Yes. All right, we move to number 6 on our list. What if the Blackhawks don't win 2013 Game 7 in overtime versus the Red Wings? I contend that this is my favorite moment of the Dynasty, aside from the Cup-winning games. Brent Seabrook in overtime, after it looks like the Hawks had won the game in regulation on a Nicholas Hjalmarsson goal that gets waved off because of a penalty 2 hours away. The Hawks end up winning it, go on to win the Stanley Cup. So what happens if they don't win that game? Obviously, they don't win the 2013 Stanley Cup. Perhaps they've got a little more juice in the tank for 2014, and they take down the Kings. Maybe Nick Leddy's butt isn't in the way. Who knows? But I think that I wonder what the long-term effects of that would have been, because that was a team that got off to a historically great start. And had they fallen short, you wonder, would some bigger changes have been made?
Yeah, I think you would look at it completely differently. You'd have, a President's Trophy team losing in the second round of the playoffs. Like, that's not a good visual. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
Especially for, a team a few years removed from winning the Cup in 2010. But I mean, you look at it, you win the Cup in 2010. They go through that summer of 2010 off season where you lose a lot of, fan favorites, a lot of key pieces. And then you're out in the first round in 7 games in 2011. You're out in the first round in 2012. If you lose in the second round in 2013, I mean,
moves are justified.
Yeah, there's probably some personnel moves that get made, both on the roster, maybe in the coaching staff, in the front office. Who knows? Like, to even consider, like, oh, would they fire Joel Quenneville? Like, you probably would have that conversation like, okay, was Quenneville a shorter run than he ended up getting? Just some of these guys, do they stick around through 14 and 15 and or are you trading some of these guys to say, like, hey, we reached the top in 2010, but we've fallen short the last 3 years and expectations are higher. We need to shake things up.
I've seen it speculated that had they not won not only that series, but that cup, that Patrick Kane could have been moved. Because they, keep in mind, Patrick Kane leading up to that was a different dude. Like, there was a lot of off the ice concerns, or everybody had a Patrick Kane story. And maybe they were like, well, we get 3 in a row now of falling short of expectations.
And that's before he's an MVP and all that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, interesting.
It could be a different trajectory, and they don't win that series, they don't win that game 7 in the fashion that they do, maybe if they lose that game 7, Brent Seabrook's legacy, I think, feels a little different because he doesn't have his signature moment. Brandon Saad might be he might be like Leddy is remembered as Nick Leddy's career in Chicago gets boiled down to, well, his ass was in the way of them winning 3 cups.
His butt prevented the cup.
And so you might look at Brandon Saad and be like, if he doesn't get called for this stupid penalty and John Wilson's goal counts, they're into the Western Conference Final. And like it definitely changes trajectories and narratives of that and you're not even talking about a dynasty.
Yeah.
Even if they win in 15, that's 5 seasons between cups. That's not a dynasty. That's a good run.
It's a good run.
It's not a dynasty though. So that series, and they could have been toast in 5. Just getting to 7 was a mountain to climb, and they get over it obviously. But I mean, yeah, you don't come out with that series. It definitely changes things, and who knows? It might change a little bit of what goes on in Detroit if they go to the Western Conference Final with that team, and have a little bit, maybe a longer run. Who knows what goes on when they face up against the Kings? I don't know. It could have been a run for Detroit. What might have been their last run to prominence, and changes things. So it's a big moment. It's a big series. A lot of memories around that one, but it could have definitely shifted.
Yeah, I think the legacy conversation is interesting too, because look, I mean, Brent Seabrook had a great career here. There's no doubt about it. But you talk about like legacy defining moments, like Hossa had Nashville Game 5, which we'll get to soon. Seabrook's got that moment. Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews have the heartbreaker, and like everyone's got their moment. Seabrook,
the heartbreaker never happens.
Yeah,
because that's when they win the Western Conference Final.
That's right.
17 seconds never happens.
I mean, I think you'd be fully justified if you lose that series of saying, all right, this is not, 2010 was magical, but we haven't been able to recapture that now.
Is this makeup?
We got to look at at the makeup of this team, and then let's say you do move on from Patrick Kane, that alters everything.
Yeah,
everything is different from then on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and as we're recording this today, it's the anniversary of the contract extensions that Toews and Kane signed back in 2014. So, who knows? Maybe that never comes to fruition. Maybe those two, like if you move Patrick Kane, Jonathan Toews' legacy is completely different.
Sure.
Because those two run parallel with each other in their careers in Chicago.
100%. I mean, it is a fascinating exercise, that's for sure. And
I'm glad don't have to live in that world.
I remember I was on the score with Hub Arkish, like before. I think it was before that game, and I'm like, if they don't win this game, they might not have a chance to win a cup again. He's like, what do you mean? They're a really good team. Like, you don't like. Teams like this don't come around where you win the President's Trophy and you set records for the way the season began, and then you just completely crap out in the playoffs. Like, you can't. Well,
think back to they had the delayed start to the season. Hawks get on the run that they do. They're on the cover of Sports Illustrated as the team that saved hockey.
Right.
And you don't come out of that with a Stanley Cup, like that becomes a meme instead of a good memory.
Yes, it does. Like the Wood and Pryor Sports Illustrated,
right? Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a shift in that, and I mean, look at some of these teams. Look at the Avalanche. We thought
we told them.
Yeah, we did. It was set up like, okay, every Western Conference Final, a couple Cup Finals, like you guys are going to be there. But it's never set in stone that's gonna be the case. So. It's crazy. Yeah, it would have definitely would have changed my fan experience if
100%.
you don't get the bragging rights of booting Detroit out of the Western Conference in that style.
Off you go
over to the Eastern Conference in their Eastern time zone.
All right, got to hit the break zone. Back with the top 5 what ifs in Blackhawks history here on CHGO Rank Week. And Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric has been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. Now is the time to get your AC checked out, and Four Seasons experts are ready to help you with AC installation, maintenance, and repair. Last year was Chicago's hottest year on record, with the heat index hitting 114 degrees last summer at O'Hare. You need your AC to work, not just to be a decoration in your backyard. You need it to work. So schedule your Four Seasons AC tune-up today. Save $50 and enjoy a 1-year no breakdown guarantee. You gotta love a guarantee like that. Your local trusted experts are Four Seasons Heating, Air Conditioning, Plumbing, and Electric. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. Again, that's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com.
And if you're looking to buy, sell, trade, or rip open packs of cards, check out our friends at Arena Club. They're changing the hobby with their transparent slab packs and no-fee auctions. You can rip open a pack for as low as $25 and hit on a card that's worth tens of thousands of dollars. And every pack has grails that are at least 20 times the price of the pack. Arena Club is one of the most trusted names in the game. They offer full transparency. They show you every card that's in the pack with the likelihood of pulling each one, so you know exactly what's available before you buy the pack. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, grading, or ripping open packs, Arena Club is the safest, most trusted in the game. And if you're checking out the National Sports Collector Convention, be sure to stop by the Arena Club booth. That's going to be happening July 30th through August 3rd at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center. And right now, you can get 20% off of your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/CHGO and using the code CHGO.
Good stuff. Rip those slab packs.
Ripping packs.
All right, we are back with the top 5 in our list of what ifs here on CHGO Rank Week. This is a big one. June 23rd.
This one has a legitimate, like now 5 through 1 all have legitimate cases for number 1.
They do, for sure. June 23rd, 2017, the Blackhawks trade Artemi Panarin and Nicholas Hjalmarsson in very quick succession. I remember those two press releases came out like 10 minutes after the other.
They were within minutes of each other. This was also the day of the NHL draft first round that was hosted in Chicago.
Yes.
So I remember this vividly. I'm living in the city at the time. I'm getting ready. I was going to the draft. I'm getting ready, and all this news breaks down, and I'm like, what is going on? Because there had been a little bit of like, what's going to happen with these guys? You know, Hawks are worried about money and stuff, and miles on Hjalmarsson and everything, and it's still, even to this day, you definitely can make the case that trading, keeping those guys was the better choice.
Keeping them
would have been the better choice. I mean, because like Nicholas Hjalmarsson, his career didn't last too much longer. He still was productive when he went to Arizona for what he needed to be, but eventually, he just time ran out on him. And Panarin, I mean, look, if you want to be good, you got to spend money.
Yeah.
Like, this is a guy that immediately jumped into the league, was rookie of the year, was one of your best players, had built chemistry with Patrick Kane. And you've seen what he's done. Like, he went to Columbus and was still an all-star. He's been an MVP candidate since he's been in New York. Like, this is a guy that you saw the trajectory, you saw it there. And it was just like, oh, he might cost money. Well, yeah, of course.
I mean, that's
of course.
And look, you have to. That is, I think, if one of the criticisms I have of Bowman is like, you've got to be looking ahead. You're looking at this year, maybe next. That was Stan Bowman's MO. Is like, let me just get to the next season and figure things out. But if you're going to make a tough decision, you look at the next 5-6 years of Artemi Panarin, and you find other money to move out.
Right.
More aging money to move out. So you are theoretically, like the Dallas Stars have been doing, is as your older guys age, you've got young guys moving up to take those spots. And Artemi Panarin was a perfect candidate to be that next running mate with Patrick Kane. And he already had been, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. And then you trade him, you get Brandon Saad back. Okay, nothing against Brandon Saad, but clearly he's not the same player Panarin is.
No.
The Murphy-Hjalmarsson thing, I'm sort of fine with. Like, Hjalmarsson was a better player overall in his career, but I think when they got Murphy and Hjalmarsson, they were very comparable And of course, Connor Murphy is still a Blackhawk, so I'll call that one okay.
So he's still playing, yeah.
But I do think there is more to that. The Hjalmarsson one especially was the feeling of the team. And I know that Joel Quenneville was livid when he heard about that trade, that Nicholas Hjalmarsson had been traded. Like Panarin, I think, was a different sort of a thing because we weren't really sure what he was at that point. It was like a one-timer machine, was very much feeding off of Patrick Kane, which is great.
Yeah.
Then went on, as you mentioned, to be great in Columbus, great in New York, sure. But Nicholas Hjalmarsson was like, that was Quenneville's dude. Yeah. And when you talk to any of the guys from that Dynasty team, they always mention Nicholas Hjalmarsson as, oh man, like without him, we don't win anything. He's the unsung hero. He did everything right. He does not get enough respect. So I think maybe not the on paper, fancy stats, orange lines or whatever, blue lines changed that much between Murphy and Hjalmarsson, but I do think the absence of Hjalmarsson was felt big time by the guys that remained for the Dynasty.
Yeah, and I think that was the start for some people. For some people, that is the start of the rebuild, and I don't agree with that. But I think you look at, okay, you're moving out a guy that is one of your best players and has tons of potential ahead of him, and you're moving out a franchise icon, a fan favorite, and I think you can point to it and be like, well, that was a shakeup move. And I just go back and think, like, if they had just, you tough it out, you figure it out with Panarin and the rest of the roster, and you think like that team had Alex DeBrincat coming in, and you had, like, you look at Kane and DeBrincat and Panarin and Daze at that time is still, this is pre him, his body shutting down on him, and Duncan Keith still had tons of hockey to play. Like that team, that was the last time they were in the playoffs. The real playoffs was that 2017 first round where you get swept by Nashville. And it's just like kind of the conversation we had with, the 2013 team. If they don't win that, you look at what happened with Nashville. They were the top seed in the Western Conference, getting swept by Nashville. Yeah. And so you look at it
in an ugly way too. Yeah, it wasn't like, oh man, they just got goalied.
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh, a couple close games. Like, no, they scored 3 goals in 4 games.
Yeah.
So, you look at it and you're like, oh, can we? At the time, it was like, can you trust Panarin in the playoffs? Well, that he hasn't shaken that, but I think you look at his numbers, you look at times he's performed, and he's led teams. Like, yeah, he can perform in the playoffs. Like, that's not a question. But you just look at what he became. Like, you keep him with Patrick Kane, like he helps him get an MVP. He was rookie of the year. Like, you feed off of that duo. You keep him with the guys around. Like, I don't think you miss the playoffs the next season in 17-18. You'd keep them. You'd keep things rolling a little bit more, because then you're not getting like a Chris Kunitz second run of Patrick Sharp.
I mean, that was the other thing too, is like the reaction after that was like, oh, we need veteran leadership and physical defensemen. Chris Kunitz and Brandon Manning and Cam Ward.
Well, and you brought back Patrick Sharp. And then in the trade, you're bringing back Brandon Saad, which, like, yeah, he had good seasons in Columbus when he was gone, but he never replicated that when he came back to Chicago the second time. And he wasn't going to replace what Panarin was producing. He wasn't going to be a 70-point guy. So when you have the conversation of some of the worst decisions in not only Hawks history, but NHL history, this is on the list.
Yeah, I just wonder what it would mean for them. Like, do they have cup runs in them after that? I think that remains to be seen, but that would have had certainly a better chance.
Yeah, you're definitely like a playoff team. Like, you don't go from first place in the Western Conference to out of the postseason if you keep those guys around. Now, there's maybe some other corresponding moves, because if you're paying Panarin, you're not paying somebody else.
You're probably losing somebody. Yeah.
Are there any big free agent signings or guys that they added with big money in that time frame that you're like, oh, you had to have this guy over Panarin? Like, no, not one.
Yeah, and they bailed on that like pretty. He still had if I'm remembering correctly, I think Panarin still had a year on that deal.
He had 1 year left at like 6 and change or something. It was.
So why not just keep him and figure it out.
Yeah, right. You negotiate for another season. Does he go out and put up 80, 90 points? Yeah, probably. But,
then
then you're in the playoffs.
Right.
Yes,
and you figure it out.
That's what happens.
And you trade his rights, his free agent rights.
Sure, yeah. You move him
at
at the draft the next year or something. It's
exactly.
just, it was a premature decision, and it was a bad one.
That's it. He's trying to shake things up, Bowman. He's trying to be brash and like, this is unacceptable. I'm going to do something that hurts, and all he did was hurt himself.
Yeah.
All right, number 4 on our list of what ifs. What if the Blackhawks beat LA in the 2014 Western Conference Finals, June 1st, 2014? The Hawks lose in overtime. Nicoletti's butt redirects and Alec Martinez, Blackhawks legend, shot, and that's it. The Kings go on to beat the Rangers for the Stanley Cup. That one was one of those series where whoever wins this is winning the cup. There's no doubt about it. They made, was it a 5-game series against the Rangers, I believe? I don't think it was a sweep.
5.
It was a gentleman's sweep.
Mm-hmm.
Hawks would have done the same thing to the Rangers. There's no doubt. And you would have had 4 Stanley Cups.
See, I wonder. So this one I wonder about a lot, because if they win, they win this series, they go to the Cup final. You assume they beat the Rangers. I think we've heard bits and pieces of stories and information from this 2014 team where they were maybe a little bit more banged up than getting to the Cup final than they had been in 2013 and 2010. So you kind of wonder, would it have been as easy as we kind of make it seem, or that LA made it seem against the Rangers?
Yes, it would
have. But if they do, it's not a foregone conclusion that you're talking about a Cup in 15, because that's an extra series, that's extra wear and tear. And if you have the team in 2014 win a Cup, again, there's ripple effects of maybe you don't get Brad Richards in 2015. Maybe you keep around Michael Handzus or something like that, because hey, we won 2 cups with him. Like, keep him around. He's still got some juice left. I think you have some different conversations in the off season, and I think I don't know if they win that series and go on to the Cup final that we assume 3-peat happens.
I mean, you can never assume that, because the butterfly effect on everything. But I don't know. 2015 was a really good and impressive run too. Like, that was a really good Tampa team, and at no point did I feel very terribly threatened by the Lightning.
No,
they were very much in control. And look, I think maybe losing that series fortified them a little bit. So like, all right, next year we're getting it back. Like, we feel like we got kind of not screwed, but like a bad bounce cost us another cup. So let's focus in again and go do it again next year. So maybe they don't approach the 2015 season with such vigor, but knowing that team, they probably could have done that too. So I don't know. It's all these are interesting, but that one, it just really feels like had they won that, they were going to win the cup. Maybe not as handily as the Kings did, but nothing about that Rangers team scared me about facing the Blackhawks. Yeah,
outside of Henrik Lundqvist in his prime, but it was no problem for the Kings. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Let's say that they do win and they go back to back, and then you have the run in 15 as well. A 3-time Cup champion, haven't seen that since the 80s, and again, it completely changes. 3 in 6 years is incredible. If you do 3 in a row, 4 in 6 years. It cements the, you talk about the modern day dynasties and everything. It cements that narrative, and you see think pieces done about the best runs of the 2000s or something. The Hawks run always kind of feels like it's like second or third or whatever, because they didn't do anything consecutively. They didn't go back to back. But I mean, if you go back to back and you go 3 in a row, I mean, you're talking about 2010s. Maybe even since 2000, last 25 years, one of the best, if not the best run that any team had been on.
Yep. All right, let's move on to number 3 on our list. What if the Blackhawks don't win 2010 Game 5 in overtime versus Nashville? The date is April 24th, 2010. Marian Hossa takes a 5-minute major with the Hawks trailing 4-3. Patrick Kane with a shorty, and then Marian Hossa scores it and wins it for the Hawks. Another iconic moment of the dynasty. I don't know if they win that series, if they lose that game,
Right.
because then they're down 3-2 heading to Nashville.
And that series wasn't.
That was a very tough series.
You can poo-poo the Predators and everything, but that was not a. Hawks are just rolling right through them, and that still is a young Blackhawks team that they had a lot of confidence going through the regular season. The run that they had the year before to the Western Conference Final gave them that confidence. But if you fall in that game, you don't have that moment. Then you got to win 2 games. Then you got to win in Nashville on the road facing elimination, and then come back to Chicago and win a Game 7, which is never an easy thing. So this one to me feels like they don't win this game. They probably. I don't want to say it's likely they lose the series, but they don't win that game. They have a tough uphill battle, and they don't win the series. And then you go and you have that summer of 2010. You don't even have any cups to talk about.
No, I mean that
changes a lot.
Yeah, that's a history-altering loss.
Yeah.
If indeed they lose a series, which is not a guarantee, but
that's hard.
Like, think about too the amount of that moment in itself did so much for their confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are never beat. Yeah. We're never beat. Like shorthanded, screw you, I'm scoring.
Team of destiny feeling.
Let's go. And yes. And something like that propels them. And it's something that as they go on in 2010 and 2013, 2015, that group can pull from that moment and say, hey, look, we've been here before. Yeah. No moment is too much for us to overcome. Let's do it like we did in 2010. Ready, break, whatever you want to say. Right. Those sort of things, they do add to a lot of athletes talk about confidence, and group confidence is a big thing too. And that moment in a game they had no effing business winning. Yeah, they played ass that game.
They tie the game on a penalty kill with the goalie pulled. So it's technically a shorthanded goal for Patrick Kane, the only time he's ever been on a penalty kill. And they scored with 18 seconds left. They were that close from just not even getting to overtime.
Right.
Yeah. So it's that is one that you talk about. So you talk about moments and signature moments and stuff like that. For as long as Hossa played here and as many big moments he had, that's his biggest. That's the one. That's his biggest. And it's in the first year that he's with the team. If that doesn't happen, what changes with his legacy with the Hawks? Does even the 3-cup run even happen? The rivalry with Vancouver, I don't think materializes the way that it does, because you don't see him again.
Yeah.
That 2010 run launched Dustin Byfuglien into being a superstar. Yes, does that ever happen? Yeah. And if it doesn't, he probably stays with the Blackhawks.
That's true.
Actually.
That's true.
And then the Duncan Keith teeth. I know it's probably not the easiest signature moment, quote unquote, to have, getting a puck in the mouth, but that's a lore of a player. Yep. Doesn't happen. And you don't get in the way of those great Sharks teams of never winning a cup. That Sharks team in 2010 was stacked.
Yeah.
And they could have easily gone to the cup final and made some noise. So it's just the ripple effect from that moment, that series, it completely could change the course of what the 2010s were for the Hawks. We're probably not even talking about, could they have three-peated or something if you don't even get there.
I agree. I think if they lose that game, they probably lose that series, and all of Hawks history is altered.
Yeah.
Speaking of altering Hawks history forever, number 2 on our list, what if the Blackhawks don't win the 2007 NHL draft lottery, allowing them to draft Patrick Kane? So they get James Van Riemsdyk instead of Patrick Kane.
Well, they weren't they 5th going into the
that's right.
They were 5th going in the lottery, and they won it from the 5th spot. So yeah, the 07 class was
oh my Lord.
Kane, Van Riemsdyk, Turris was 1, 2, 3, was it not?
Then it was Thomas Hickey 4th.
Sure.
And the number 5 pick, Carl Elsner.
Who was 6?
Sam Gagner.
Blackhawk, almost always a Blackhawk.
Almost always a Blackhawk
legend.
No one else in this draft.
07?
No, there's no one here that makes them a cup champion. Logan Couture, maybe.
Okay.
Who was drafted 9th.
Sure.
But so is such a... So Patrick Kane, 1,302 games so far, 1,343 points. James Van Riemsdyk, 1,082 games, 665 points.
Like a good career.
Oh, of course. No, nothing against
a very
JVR.
good career. But even so, if the Hawks don't win the lottery that year, right? Even if they were to say, oh, they go to 2 and get Van Riemsdyk, you add Van Riemsdyk to the group that they had. Like,
that's a good team.
That's a good team.
Sure.
You still got to do the Havlat host of conversation. But I mean, Patrick Kane is just clearly on a entirely different level than any of the other guys that would have been available there. Changes the way that you build that team moving forward. If they had gotten Kyle Turris, that's a center. It's different than getting a guy on the wing that is a top line wing, a future Hall of Famer. I think the conversation is interesting because you don't get that guy in Patrick Kane, right? But you already had Daze the year before. You had Keith and Seabrook in the NHL coming along. You had Sharp, who was looking decent at that time. Going into the 07-08 season is where he kind of took off as one of the guys that you look at. By that time, you also have Bufflin in the organization. You have Boland in the organization. You have Hjalmarsson in the organization. Crawford's there. So those guys are all still there.
Yeah.
But you're talking about Patrick Kane.
Like, we have the conversation so often about, like, if this guy wasn't on the Hawks, do they win a single cup? And I think the main guy on that is Duncan Keith.
Yeah.
I don't know if they win a single one without him, but Patrick Kane is right in that conversation. And I think while at their peaks, Jonathan Toews was a better player, Patrick Kane just had this knack for the moment. He had a confidence about him and a swagger about him that made him unstoppable when the lights were the brightest. And I mean, they call him Showtime for a reason.
Right.
And it is a very logical argument to say the Hawks don't win a single cup without him. And you could plug in anybody else from the 2007 draft. I don't care. I guess the one exception I'm just trying to see is like some major hit.
Is there any
later in
anybody
the draft
from like the second round or something?
Like PK Subban was a second round pick.
But that doesn't.
Wayne Simmons, no. Like, there's no one that really moves the needle here. David Perron,
no.
Like Max Pacioretty,
it's got to be a good player, but again,
Jakub Voracek,
it's a completely different level.
It's just not.
It's a completely different level.
None of these guys are anywhere close to Patrick Kane.
Yeah.
So
and you don't get Patrick Kane, you don't get the Daze and Kane like legacy of those two guys together. It's completely different. You're seeing it now with Bedard and Zegras and Gavin McKenna and like literally like any young, like Mitch Marner, like any young guy that came up into the NHL as like a skill player.
Yeah.
Their favorite player is Patrick Kane.
All of them.
They all say it. And he'd be, a flyer or something. And that kind of sucks. You don't want the background of PHLY with Patrick Kane on it. No. They can put him shaking Kimo Timonen on their background.
Yeah, they can put Michael Layton on their banner.
There you go.
How's that?
Yeah.
All right, we got one more to go. Number 1 on our CHGO Blackhawks top 10 what ifs. What if the Blackhawks kept Roenick, Chelios, and Belfour in the 90s? So you get in the trade for those 3 guys, you get really one player that helped you at the NHL level in Alexei Zhamnov. And I know he is hated because of who he was traded for, but you got Anders Eriksson and Ty Jones. No, Ty Jones was a Zhamnov one. And Craig Mills. Those guys did nothing.
Right.
You get Anders Eriksson for Chris Chelios. That was a complete bust out. You get Ulf Dahlen, Michael Sikora, and Chris Terreri for Eddie Belfour. So if you have a GM that knows what the F they're doing and you actually get value for these 3 superstar players you traded,
right?
Maybe the history changes, but you're almost tempted to say if they don't botch these 3 trades so badly, maybe the 2010 dynasty never happens. And that's reality, because without those dark ages of the early to mid 2000s, you don't get Kane, you don't get Toews, you don't get Keith, you don't get Seabrook. Was it ultimately a good thing? Because you don't know if that team, as we talked about on Mailbag Monday last week, like the Hawks, Bill Wirtz refused to ever add the piece needed to put the Hawks over the hump. So if you keep them, are you just more of the same? And then Jeremy Roenick starts to deteriorate, and Eddie Belfour, gives you what he's always given you. Chris Chelios is in his 40s, and is he still as effective in Chicago when he's not playing with Nick Lidstrom and Steve Yzerman and these great Red Wings teams? Those are all big what ifs. But I think one thing that if it doesn't happen is the dark ages in terms of fan interest don't happen.
Right.
Because Chelios, Roenick, Belfour were worth the price of admission. And I think by bringing those guys back, even if it was like one of the 3, because that's like at the end of the dynasty, or like, let's say it's like 2013, as we talked about earlier. If they don't win that cup, that's like trading Kane and Toews and Keith,
right? And
like getting literally a second line center back for the 3 of them,
right? It's like getting Kyle Turris.
Yes. Like that. It's just, to me, what was unforgivable about that was, well, there's a couple things. The profile of those guys and what they meant to the fan base, and the absolutely ass returns you got for all of them.
Yeah. I mean, you keep those guys around and, see what happens, but I don't think you're at a point in 2004 where ESPN is ranking all of the major 4 sports organizations, football, basketball, hockey, baseball, and the Blackhawks aren't at the bottom of the list. They aren't 100 and whatever it is.
Yeah.
Out of all of the teams, because I think you're talking about an organization that would have kept their stars around, kept their fan favorites around, kept the guys that would have kept pushing those teams forward around. You keep Chelios, Belfour, Roenick. You had Tony Amonte on those teams come into his own. You had Eric Daze still around, as we talked about him earlier. You had some good players still there. Maybe you do go into a deep playoff run and then say, look, we need this free agent, and if you get this guy, you trade for this guy, whoever it is. You talk about Brett Hull always feeling like he was going to be a Hawk. You go out and get somebody like that and you add it to the team, you might be talking about a 90s Hawks team that wins a Stanley Cup.
Brett Hull signed with Dallas in 98-99.
There you go. So
if you add Brett Hull,
and Chelios was the last to be moved, right? And that was in the 99 season.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you've got Roenick, you've got Belfour, you've got Chelios, you add Brett Hull, even at that point in his career where he is a 58 points, 59, but he's still 32 goals, 24 goals, 39 goals, 30 goals, 30. Like that guy was a goal scorer until the very, very end.
Mm-hmm.
That can put you over the hump for a cup.
Yeah.
But they refused, and a lot of people speculate Bill Wirtz didn't want Bobby Hull around because of old grudges. Great.
Sure.
You're costing yourself a Stanley Cup,
and
you're making fans angry and upset. Like, it just felt like and he was great at that. But just adding Brett Hull to an existing Hawks team, maybe they were towards the end because Chris Chelios is 35 years old, but give it one more run with Chelly and see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, good Lord. The guy finished second in the Norris voting when he was 40. That's insane.
It's hard to deny.
All right. Well, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on CHGO Sports all week. Every beat here at CHGO is going to do their own show of what ifs. So make sure you're following us on YouTube, social media at CHGO_sports, and join the conversation. Let us know what you think. What do we miss? What are we ranking correctly? Let us know in the comments. Let us know on social media. And we'll talk to you next time on the CHGO Blackhawks Podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.